The biblical period of the Judges is generally placed between the Late Bronze Age collapse, circa 1200 BCE, and the emergence of the Israelite monarchy, circa 1000 BCE. According to the Book of Judges, this was a time of decentralized tribal rule, internal strife, and periodic conflicts with neighboring groups such as the Canaanites, Philistines, Moabites, and Ammonites. The lack of clear extra-biblical records directly mentioning the Israelites from this era has led some scholars to question whether they existed as a distinct people at the time. However, a variety of archaeological discoveries suggest the presence of a unique group in the central highlands of Canaan, whose material culture differs from the established urban Canaanite civilization. These findings, combined with textual evidence such as the Merneptah Stele, provide a strong case for the historical presence of early Israelites during the Judges period. The Merneptah Stele, the first mention of Israel. One of the most significant pieces of evidence supporting the existence of Israelites during the period of Judges is the Merneptah Stele, an Egyptian inscription dating to around 1207 BCE. Discovered in Thebes in 1896, the stele records Pharaoh Merneptah's military campaigns in Canaan and contains the earliest known extra-biblical reference to Israel. The inscription states, "Israel is laid waste, its seed is no more." This mention of Israel is crucial for several reasons. It establishes that a group called Israel existed in Canaan by the late 13th century BCE. The use of the determinative sign for a people rather than a city-state suggests that Israel was a semi-nomadic or tribal group rather than an established kingdom. It places Israelites in Canaan during the time of Judges, aligning with the biblical narrative. The Merneptah Stele does not provide details about the Israelites' way of life or political structure, but it confirms that they were significant enough to be recognized by Egypt as a distinct entity. Settlement patterns in the Central Highlands. Another key piece of evidence supporting the presence of Israelites during the Judges period is the shift in settlement patterns in the Central Highlands of Canaan. The appearance of new villages. Archaeological surveys, particularly those conducted by Israel Finkelstein, Adam Zertel, and William Dever, have identified a dramatic increase in small, rural settlements in the hill country of Canaan between 1200 and 1000 BCE. These settlements exhibit characteristics that distinguish them from Canaanite urban centers. They are small and dispersed. Unlike the large, fortified Canaanite cities of the Bronze Age, these settlements typically consist of a few dozen houses arranged in clusters. They lack monumental architecture. Unlike Canaanite sites, which contain palaces and temples, these villages lack centralized authority structures, fitting the decentralized nature of Israelite society described in Judges. They lack pig bones. Excavations at these sites have found an absence of pig bones, which is unusual compared to Canaanite and Philistine settlements. This dietary restriction aligns with later Israelite dietary laws and suggests an early form of Israelite identity. Four-room houses as an ethnic marker. One of the most distinctive features of these highland settlements is the prevalence of the four-room house, a unique architectural style found at sites believed to be Israelite. This house type, characterized by a central courtyard with rooms surrounding it, is uncommon in Canaanite urban centers but appears frequently in later Israelite settlements. The widespread use of the four-room house suggests a shared cultural tradition among the inhabitants of these highland settlements, reinforcing the idea that they belonged to a distinct ethnic group, likely the early Israelites. Pottery and material culture. Archaeological excavations have revealed a distinct shift in pottery styles during the period of the Judges. While Canaanite cities produced elaborate painted pottery, the highland settlements associated with early Israelites primarily used simple, undecorated pottery. This suggests a cultural distinction between the urban Canaanites and the rural highland population. Moreover, the continuity of this pottery style into the later periods of the Israelite monarchy suggests that these highland settlers were part of the same cultural and ethnic group that later formed the Kingdom of Israel. The lack of Canaanite religious symbols. One of the most striking aspects of early Israelite settlements is the absence of temples, cultic statues, and Canaanite religious artifacts. In contrast, Canaanite and Philistine sites frequently contain figurines of deities such as Baal, Asherah, and Astarte. The lack of such items in highland sites suggests a different religious tradition, possibly an early form of Yahwism. This aligns with biblical descriptions of the Israelites as a people who rejected Canaanite polytheism, though not always successfully, as the Book of Judges frequently notes instances of Israelite apostasy. The absence of Canaanite religious symbols further strengthens the case that the highland settlers were a distinct group with a unique religious identity. The transition from nomadism to sedentary life. Some scholars, such as Anson Rainey and Lawrence Stager, argue that the early Israelites were originally semi-nomadic pastoralists who settled in the highlands as the Canaanite city-states declined. This theory, known as the pastoral nomad hypothesis, suggests that the Israelites were not foreign invaders but rather indigenous Canaanites who adopted a new identity and lifestyle. This fits well with the biblical narrative of the Israelites as a people who initially lived in tents and gradually transitioned to settled life. The Book of Judges describes a period of instability and movement, which is reflected in the archaeological record by evidence of seasonal encampments and eventually more permanent villages. While direct archaeological evidence confirming the biblical stories of the Judges remains elusive, multiple lines of evidence strongly support the existence of an early Israelite population in Canaan during this time. The Merneptah Stele provides the earliest extra-biblical reference to Israel in Canaan around 1207 BCE. The settlement patterns in the highlands suggest a new, distinct population emerging between 1200 and 1000 BCE. The presence of four-room house sand and the absence of pig bones indicate a shared cultural and ethnic identity. The simplistic pottery style suggests a break from Canaanite urban traditions. The lack of Canaanite religious symbols suggests a distinct religious identity, possibly an early form of Yahwism. Taken together, this evidence paints a picture of a new population, likely the early Israelites, settling in the central highlands of Canaan during the period of the Judges. While the full story of Israelite origins remains complex and debated, the archaeological record strongly supports the idea that a distinct group, later identified as Israel, emerged in Canaan around the time described in the biblical Book of Judges.